It's Wizards versus Lesbians, a podcast for your ears. Hello and welcome to Wizards versus Lesbians. My name is Isaac.
I'm Alexis.
And today we're discussing Bunny by Mona Awad.
We sure are.
Would you like to do the plot or shall I?
I will try.
Go for it.
So, Samantha is an absolutely miserable student in Brown University's first ever all-female prose MFA cohort. Pretty much the only things that keep her alive are her best friend, who's absolutely the coolest person in the world, and hating on the other four girls in her MFA cohort who have formed this sort of weird girl power hive mind, and they all have names, they have, at least two personality traits apiece, but they all call each other Bunny. And then one day, for some reason, Samantha catches the attention of the four bunnies and gets sucked into their extremely bizarre bunny cult.
I think that sums it up. Are there wizards in this book?
Yeah, I think so.
I agree.
I mean, there's certainly people doing magic.
Yes, absolutely. And there is a graduate or a professor who is definitely sleeping with the undergrads or attempting to. To be fair, he's trying to sleep with grad students, not undergrads, if that helps. And also there might be a very specific reason that he can be excused for this, if you believe my theory, which I get into in about an hour.
Oh, yeah, no, the lion is absolutely a wizard.
Also, he's called the lion.
Right.
But he's kind of an incidental figure in all of this. Now, a more difficult question, are there lesbians?
I mean, I think that the relationship between Samantha and her best friend is close enough.
Yes, I would say that Samantha's sexuality and gender are among the most fraught issues in this text. And we will end up discussing that in great detail.
Yes.
So there is at least a bisexual. I think that we can be relatively confident in saying that.
Yes.
And yes, there's all kinds of...
And boy, is there conflict.
Interpersonal conflict here. So having established that despite the fact that this is not really marketed as an SF book, let alone a Wizards versus Lesbians book, we're going to say it is for our own purposes.
We're going to round it up to Wizles.
Yes, because I do think that there's a lot of interesting stuff going on here, particularly because it really does hit a lot of the classic Wizles beats and then just goes scurrying away from them at the end.
Hopping away.
Yes, hopping away is a better way to put it. So, why should you read this book?
Well, it is significantly more interesting than every other book about an MFA program I've ever read, which is far too many of them.
Yes. It is a novel about being in a MFA where you write book. If you are me, you are banging your head against the wall at the very concept. But this one gets weirder with it than many would.
Yes. This one really commits to getting weird with it. And, I really admire that out of an MFA novel.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that this is a novel out of an MFA program, just that it is a novel about the MFA world, of which, again, there are too many. I
am happy never to read another book about an author or a movie about the process of making movies again. But, there are perfectly understandable structural reasons for why that will never happen. So, yes, I would say that also it's funny. Even if the very specific, cultural satire stuff doesn't land, there's just the sheer silliness of what is going on in this book at any given time is definitely worth a chuckle.
Yeah, I would say a lot of the things that are, a lot of the social satire for me felt tired, but all the weird stuff, you get some moments that are genuinely really quite entertaining.
Yes. And the bunny's awfulness, while again, it may seem played out in a number of different ways, depending on what milieu you're coming from, does reach some impressive heights, which I
And I
enjoy.
really, yes, and I have to really hand it to the author here because it would have been really easy to just make the bunnies slide into this kind of, you know, misogynist caricature of cringe women.
Uh-huh.
But each of them is specific enough as a person. And also, some of the weirdnesses about their hive mind are specific enough that it made them much more interesting than I was expecting out of this book going in.
Yes, I would agree with that. I think that if you wanted to argue with me that this book is just straight up misogynist, I would not necessarily disagree. But I think that you can give it a certain amount of doubt, depending on which way you want to enter it from. And why I think that is, we'll get into later in the spoiler zone. We don't actually get around to this, but the short version is that this story is all about girls, and everyone in the story is kind of awful, and the narrator kind of hates everyone, and she's a girl, and that's fine. They're not awful because they're girls. This is just the way of the world.
Yes, and in general, I think there's a good use of little establishing details for a lot of the people here.
Yeah. It's very evocative. Prose is like whatever, but the details that one is given really do bring out a sense of place, and you get very strong sort of visual imagery. And yeah, no, it's well written, I would say, but like not in a very like high flown register, but it is well written in the register that it's written.
Yeah, I would agree. And I gotta say, it is a remarkably good portrayal of snotty Ivy League students at somewhere like Providence.
Yes. But I'm going to include the narrator in that as well, which may then contribute to why you shouldn't read this book.
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, the narrator, one of the things actually I love about this book is that it really captures the way that so many of the brown students I have met seem to be convinced that Providence is this like absolute hellhole ghetto war zone.
Oh, we're going to talk about that.
Despite the fact that Providence is actually a quite nice, like mid-sized American city. Um,
Yes.
and I think that's off. I think that is because of the, because we're getting a first person narration. Like, I think that is very specifically supposed to be revealing of, that our protagonist is not nearly as cool and above it all as she thinks.
Because of the sort of the MFA novel-ass nature of this, I am going to be tempted, and I may accidentally conflate the author and the narrator as we're going through this. I do encourage you to pull me up on that if I do, because that's not good lit crit, among other reasons.
I mean, for one thing, the author is dead. For another thing, the author's MFA isn't from Brown, at least not according to the acknowledgments in the book, because the author thanks their University of Denver cohort. So, and
Sure. But regardless, the reason that I'm saying that is because this is a book that does not have any people who I want to be around in it at all at any given point. And that might be a fine reason to not read it.
Yeah, why did you not read this book? Because every single person in this book is absolutely insufferable. The Alaskan guy, rehab guy, is okay.
Yes,
He's trying
in a crowded field. He manages to get by simply by not being pretentious.
Right.
And like I have a high degree of tolerance for pretension, in life and in people. I generally think that pretension is.
I do not.
Well, yes, this is a difference between us. But even I, at this point, I'm like, wow, I don't care which angle you're going at this from. Everybody here is awful. I don't want to spend another second with any of you. Thank God the book's over.
Right.
But I think that delving into the precise ways in which, particularly the narrator is awful, is going to be interesting.
Yes.
So yeah, if you want a sort of a forensic analysis of some awful social dynamics among awful people, then you could do worse than this.
Yes. There's a lot of there's a lot of ways in which this book is good, but you're still spending time just watching horrible people do horrible things to each other. And I think like you could also use that you could also describe Nine Fox Gambit that way, and I love that book. So, but this one is just it is well written enough that it really does get under your skin, and just go, I hate all of you.
Yes, I think a calendar ship is possibly a more interesting milieu for that to happen in than an MFA program.
Absolutely.
Just objectively.
Yeah. Well, Yoon Lee was willing to get a lot weirder with it. Also, honestly, Cheris is just a more interesting character than any of these people. But this is not the Nine Fox Gambit episode, which we've already done. This is the Bunny episode. Content warnings.
Yeah, we haven't really mentioned that it's a horror novel yet.
Yeah, this is a horror novel. Incidentally, a person, I think it was Saya, who asked sent us a Tumblr ask about whether or not we accept horror. Yes, we do. I just reserve the right to go ick and stop reading it.
Yes. That is what happened to another one of our cannibal recommendations. The Dead Take the A Train, I think. That one failed the ick factor, so apologies that we won't be covering that one.
I mean, maybe someday when I'm really in the mood, I'll try it again,
But regardless, there's a lot of people getting... well, actually, like, how much is there in that way?
Okay, well, there's a lot of body horror. Boy, is there a lot of animals exploding.
That's true.
So, yes, note, the bunny in Bunny is also literal. There are a lot of bunnies, and most of them do not... Things rarely turn out well for the bunnies.
Yes. There is some implied sexual assault later on in the book. There is nothing actually happened, but there is the aforementioned professor who is definitely
grooming his student.
Yeah, I think that pretty much does it. There's a lot of gore.
There's a lot of and also like
content warning being miserable in college,
Right, but also just like, okay, what happens to the bunny people? I'm not even sure how to describe this as a content warning, but it's definitely sexual and non-consensual.
Yes, absolutely.
There's a lot of stuff that does not rise to something that could be prosecuted or even violate a school code of conduct, but sure is sexual and weird and non-consensual.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable way to put it.
Oh, and drugs. Drug use.
Really forcible.
Yeah, people getting drugged. Oh, also like a cult. Like, it's not exactly a cult, but it is close enough to a cult. So, cult dynamics.
Yeah, that's a cult rather than the occult,
yes.
Which I don't think we have to content warn for.
I don't think so either.
Yes.
Not in the Wizards versus Lesbians podcast.
Right.
All right, shall we?
Yes, let us do that. And by that I mean it's time to go to the spoiler zone. Man, can you hear those crickets and cicadas? Fall's coming. So, you know
Bunnies.
What? Here's a content warning. I think it's racist how there are no black people in this book. In Providence, Rhode Island.
I mean, part of it is that there's just very little interaction with people outside of the bubble.
Yes, but the way in which like our narrator talks about how like horrific and monstrous the townies are and never once specifies their race gave me a real bad taste in my mouth all the way through.
I think that's a deliberate choice.
I do too. I think that this is a satire of the kind of person for whom the only racial comment that they feel comfortable making is white woman used as an epithet,
yes.
Which our hero, who as far as I know is also white, uses on a number of occasions.
Yes.
So there's a little additional content warning for you, but I mentioned that as sort of an intro to the kind of person that we're dealing with here in Smacky.
Yes, Smacky, Samantha Mackey, who... And actually, okay, so the thing that really did win me over about this book is that I go into this book being like, wow, main character is insufferable, and her friend is gently poking, and her friend is like unrealistically perfect.
Yes.
Not perfect as in a person I would want to hang out with, but perfect as in, how has she managed to have grown up poor enough that she can razz Smacky about being poor while also having all these experiences in Europe?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's the reveal that Ava is is a literalization of everything that Smacky thinks is cool.
And once in a companion.
Yes, or wants to be herself, which is a ambiguity that we keep coming back to. Do you want her? Do you want to be her? And what do you want out of your gender? That's the question that Bunny asks. Or Benui. She manages to summon both her anima and her animus.
Yes.
Which makes me want to shake her at the end of the book and is like, you're trans, Smacky. There is, you might, I don't know if you're trans mask, but you were definitely non-binary. There is something going on with gender in you. But that we can come back to that later.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because, the girls they could only summon men.
Yes.
The bunnies.
And this is one of the things about the book that this is sort of the spoiler for my ultimate take on the book. But one of the things that annoys me about this book is that, textually, like, the problem with the bunnies is that their imaginations aren't very good, basically. Is that they are women from such an incredibly like sheltered and narrow background, despite their wealth, that they are incapable of imagining they're even incapable of imagining a man. Like, they're capable of having an honest sexual fantasy, even among themselves and even inside their own brains, even though they're all heterosexual, ? Even though they certainly don't have the capacity to question whether they're heterosexual.
Right.
And to contrast this, Smacky has a very good imagination because she's a real artist.
Yes.
Unlike them.
From a small town, though, again, another way in which I feel like the narration does a good job, narration does a good job of making it clear that that Smacky is full of shit, is she spends all this time talking about, the tiny Mountain West town that she's from and how poor she grew up. And then you find out that she spent several years being actually quite rich, and like getting to travel and stay in all these fancy places around the world. And
yes, now one of the good little digs that the book gets in is that nobody is upset about poverty as a person who has at one point not been poor. But the problem, however, with this is that in order for the plot to work, she does actually have to be like 10 times the artists that they are.
Yes.
And that has to make her cool and sexy and dangerous. And at the end of it, you're just sort of rolling your eyes quite a lot about her artistic prowess and how much better she is than the others, and how they are all sort of meekly lined up with their injuries at the end going, yes, she's better than we are. We're sorry.
Yeah, I felt like the end was a bit of a letdown.
In many ways.
In many ways.
The ending felt like a sort of a scurrying back toward a safe place in a way that one gets at the end of a sort of traditional horror narrative.
Yeah.
And for a number of reasons, but again, we can get there later. But yes, no, as you were saying, the gradual realization that Ava is like this because she is not real,
right,
because she is the ideal, is wonderful. Like, the fact that, as far as I remember, it doesn't mention that she has heterochromia until about halfway through.
It does, but only with the phrase David Bowie eyes.
Yes, but that's wonderful. It's like when that finally sinks in, it's like, oh, she is your OC. Okay,
right.
And like that, and it is sort of a Darkness Dementia Raven way, deviant art kind of a way too. It's like, are you like the artist here, or are the standards here just so low?
I think the standards are just so low.
I think that is possibly what is being suggested. And it's like, one of the first things that she does in the book is like be really sort of snide and resentful about all of the like the European uh, retreats and like European travel grants that her elder elders in the cohort, or not in the cohort, but the faculty have gotten when they talk to her. And we have the very relatable feeling of, oh, these people grew up in a world on easy mode, and that is not the world that we're currently living in, and they don't know it. Sentiment, but in the end, but as you say, Ava is so European on top of everything else. And it's like,
Right.
oh no, that's not contempt, that's jealousy. I see.
Yep.
It's very easy to mistake the one for the other.
And so, yeah, I thought that the pacing on that reveal was quite good, so that when she comes home to find that actually it's a, squatter house, and to find a dead swan in Ava's place, it feel that, like, that whole thing feels very earned, especially because then you realize, oh, she, what wasn't the thing that attracted the bunnies to her was they saw Ava laugh. And
Yes.
went, oh, and this is again where it also falls flat a little bit, because it's like, oh, she has this imaginative power that we can actually tap into.
Right. Well, I mean that thing works for me. Like the idea that I think that the unfortunate consequence that it just means that Smacky is a lot better than them, like just textually, and that's where the book ends. That's an unfortunate consequence of what I think is actually a very nifty metaphor about the art school experience, which is
That's fair, where people sort of hone in on, oh, or it's actually true, I think, of like grad school in general, of, oh, you have an exploitable talent, and you don't have the social cred for it to like make use of it.
yes, but specifically in in like academic creative fields, or in like high level theater workshopping, where any sort of gestational craft where you are meant to be drawing on your own life, like it's very much what the bunnies see in her is the authenticity that they are missing.
Ah, I see.
No,
that makes sense.
what they it goes back and forth, like what they think about her, whether they think that she's like they never think that she's sort of the sad nobody that she sees herself as in front of them, but whether they think that she's like stuck up and too good for them, or pretentious or whatever. What they really want is her realness, and
Right.
they expect her to the first scene where they take her to their hilarious like smut salon, where their attempts to be erotic are hilarious.
Yes.
Unsuccessful, but they all run around telling each other how erotic everything is what they want from her is actual eroticism. What they want from her is actual sex, because they can tell that she has had life experiences, which she has.
Yes, but again, it's actually really great where, she provides that, and then she has to start making it up, because, the experience she has to draw on still aren't actually what they're looking for. And so
Right.
she ends up lying about her life experience, which is still significantly better than what they're doing, and produces a better bunny man out of it, until he explodes. But
she isn't actually what she is selling herself as to them or to us at any point.
right.
She's just the closest thing to it that they have encountered. She is the girl in their cohort of 5 people. We had 4 people who are from essentially identical social backgrounds, and plus 1. And
Right.
and so what she's being expected to do, both by her both by the bunnies, but also by the person who's leading their workshop, and by Lion,
Right.
is to perform like girl from poverty at them. This is why the Christmas party her teacher charitably invites her to goes the way it does, because she can't stick to the script. Or in other words, this is why it doesn't work at the Christmas dinner. Though she acted like a jerk, I'm inclined to forgive her. She was brought to play a role she was not prepared for, to be the deserving poor and not to be Scared for. Yeah, that'll do.
Yes.
And this isn't necessarily all in the text, but from working in like artistic spaces, like because that's what gets you grants, because
Mm.
that's what you can put on a form and sell to people uh because this is viewed as sort of a way to claim a connection to something that's real in what is like an increasingly moribund and cut off from any kind of not only like reality but any kind of like high culture that actually exists out in the world.
Right. And any kind of program that incentivizes that means that you're incentivizing people to take whatever parts of their background are saleable as authentic and package it up.
Precisely, like
It reminds me of the forum on this diversity fellowship where everyone was like, yeah, we've all gotten real good at writing statements about, exactly how our whatever axis of marginalization it is makes us, gives us this special insight and blah, blah, blah. Just over and over and over again.
yeah uh and what this looks like on a day-to-day level is you go to class and you are sat down and you are asked to perform your trauma for these people who you don't like or know, um, over and over and over again, including like people who have power over you, people who might want to sleep with you, people who like are in control of your stipend, uh,
Yeah.
and the the degree to which you are able to, you know, be that kind of performing pain animal for them is will determine your success within this sort of respite from the real world that you have been granted.
Yeah. And, it's real easy to kick someone out of a grad program.
Uh-huh. No, the lion is being very judicious with his ability to do this, but the genuine threat of it is absolutely hovering over her at any given moment. And so yeah, so this is the situation that Smacky finds herself in, and no wonder she kind of goes insane as a result of this. So yeah, no, I think it's a good metaphor. I just think that the way that it ends is like sort of buys into the lie of it all a little bit by the time that we're done.
Yeah, just the way that, like, she gets absolutely everything that she wants, except for, of course, her friend, who is now dead, but who was a swan.
Well, I mean, I think like the tragedy for Smacky is that she has bested her foes, but the thing that she hasn't done is learned anything.
Right. And, I mean, she's still pretty alone. I mean, like, she's she's learned just enough that maybe she's going to try hanging out with the Alaskan guy who's in rehab. Um,
Yes.
but I think it is telling that the final line is, you know, she's not saying it to him. She's saying it to her feet, and it's it's something like the mud says. The dialogue tag isn't for Jonah; it's the mud.
Yeah, which is nasty. And I think that this is part of the gender of it all because the question of whether Smacky is our hero or our heroine or our other really is brought up in a number of ways and is not really addressed, resolved. You mean? But at the end of the story, she gets to go through her story, and then her reward is her enemies are humbled. Her the people who she was scared of and had power over her are now rewarding her, and she gets the guy.
Yeah,
And
sort of.
it has to be the guy because there are no other options.
Right.
Because the only other like remotely real human being that she's run into, because she can't conceive of the townies as human beings,
Mm-hmm.
is this guy who sucks. I think it's pretty I think the book does not attempt to sell us on this being anything but a guy who sucks. Who's absolutely like best available guy and who is absolutely trying to sleep with her
Yes.
throughout the entire thing, and who by whom she is mostly annoyed, and not in a romantic way. Um, she just
Yes.
mostly thinks that his habits and interests are kind of dumb, and this is the reward that she gets at the end of all of this: the mud, the real, the authentic, is this dipshit basically, uh, which suggests to me that this is a bad ending in the video game sense.
Yes. No, I think it is. And while I still felt like it was, her enemies humbled, I still felt like that the whole bunny thing wrapped up a little too neatly. And with, the lion just sort of being like, I liked your thesis very much. But still, like, it was willing to at the the very end commit to, okay, no, still this all kind of sucks. Um,
Yeah, and it's like the
though it's
I
hard to
think that
tell how much Jonah is a dipshit and how much of this is again the narrative voice. I mean, mostly what we know about him is that uh, he got out of a bad situation, made it, is the other guy not from an elite school to make it into the MFA program. That basically he's the poetry cohort's equivalent of her,
mhm.
except possibly except coming from more difficulties.
Yes,
And like mostly he just sort of hangs around and offers to drive her around, and like he's mostly pretty nice to her. She's just full of contempt.
right. It's the distance between him and what she wants that's really the issue at the end of the day. I I'm again getting my perspectives confused, but certainly from everything that she has thought about him up until this point, he's the dipshit. Where again, as we point out, he seems to be a person who has actually done what has done and is not being unbearably pretentious and dramatic about it, and is just getting on with things.
And like also like has done what she is, selling herself as having done, but
But more so,
more so. And like, yeah, just, and also like the way that there's this whole thing where she keeps treating his antidepressants as though he's just constantly on Valium, when it's like, no, that's not really how SSRIs work.
yeah,
And then she, meanwhile, is taking like all of these unknown tranquilizers and painkillers. Like she spends, the middle third of the book just being fed various pills. And then, but then she looks at him being on antidepressants and in a very like, early 90s kind of way goes, oh, that must make him a zombie.
yeah. There's a lot of stuff about zombies here, and who is allowed to have a brain and who's allowed to have agency, and the difference between the imaginary characters that the bunnies come up with, the imaginary characters that she comes up with, and the quote unquote real people. Part of which is why the ending feels so washed out. It's because we only have the real people to choose from anymore at that point. Uh,
Yeah.
if I'm giving the book the sort of the benefit of the doubt, it would be one thing if Samantha had learned from this experience to value the personhood that is inside our poet. But
But she really hasn't.
we don't really get any indication that she's done that at any
No.
point. She doesn't really have time. We once all the inciting incidents are over, we just get sort of a time skip to the quote unquote happy ending.
Yeah.
And I think that's on purpose, because
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think that if you have the like, she doesn't spend any time thinking about what she means that she was clearly in love with this ideal woman, right?
Right. Like the thing she gets is telling this ideal man she created, also out of an animal, that, oh, we both loved her.
Right. And she doesn't spend any time thinking about what it means that she created this man to do the things that she wants to do but won't let herself do.
Right, like be in love with Ava.
Like A, be in love with Ava, and B, um,
B, seduce all the bunnies and do horrible things to them.
right, which clearly that idea came from her head. You know, everything that he did came from her head.
Right, no, it absolutely came from her head. Like, I mean, like, because everything, like, when you watch them be all broken in the emergency workshop, they each come in carrying the thing that symbolizes the nasty name that she gave them.
Yes, exactly, exactly. It's wonderful, and but she does not allow herself to think even for a second about the implications of any of this.
Right. And I mean, to be fair, it's kind of vague whether or not this is a gender thing or a sexuality thing, because whether or not she's creating this sort of perfect man, this incredibly cool man who shoplifts at the Whole Foods, and carries a knife, to be, to do all of these things to all of these women because she doesn't feel like a woman can do that, or because she doesn't, or because like she wants this male experience, is left vague.
Hmm. Well, I mean, I think that the genesis of it is contempt for the bunny's ability to conceive of masculinity, or to conceive of any kind of masculinity that is not, the what Orpheus the Fourth is, which is like the perfect good listener machine,
Yes.
who praises you and pets you and is incapable of having an opinion or a penis.
Right, and if you say anything too sexual, will literally explode.
Yes. So I think like where it starts is her reveling in the idea of, well, like, I understand what sex is, which you guys don't. B, I
Right.
understand what, the appeal of the man, the dangerous man is, in which you don't. And it's something that you desperately want from me,
Yeah.
but won't accept from me, or can't hear from me. And so
It's certainly very gender.
yeah, and so I will show you. But then at the end of the day, but once we get to that point, I'm like, oh God, but what are the implications of this for you?
Right.
Like your desires, like you have shown yourself to successfully be able to really understand this ideal of a heterosexual man to the extent that you are embodying him and being him in a really creative sort of way. Maybe this is why maybe maybe you're
Maybe you should explore this just a little.
right. It can just be art. It can just be stories. Novel writing is not autobiography, but in this case, the stories that this fictional character writes are so bound up in her wants and needs and her ideals. The stories become people she makes up to be in love with. And at that point, that's a fantasy. And why not? But maybe you could act on it. And the book just refuses to do that, right?
Yes.
Refuses to even think about it. I mean, when I say the book, again, I mean that
You mean
Samantha
the narrator, and this is Samantha.
does, but like it feels, I mean, this is partially because this is the podcast that we're on, but it feels like, oh my God, we are really stepping up to revolutionary queerness here to break out of this, this academy.
And then just like, right, and then just like flinching away and being like, actually, no, I'm going to graduate and get my MFA from the academy after all.
Yes, and I'm going to go out with this dude who is just there.
Right.
Again, might be a really talented poet. We have no way of knowing.
Right. We never get to read any of his poems.
He has been the kind of boring, bland option for the entire book so far, at least as far as Samantha is concerned.
Yes.
And so I'm like, what is this giant flinching away? Is it just the satire needs to be this, this contained? Are we making fun of Samantha for her, like, incredibly sort of cringy, this is really the cool guy with the axe tattoo on his, he carries a knife, which everybody knows is the coolest thing in the
And
world.
he shoplifts at the Whole Foods.
And and we're living this bohemian lifestyle that no, you don't know what that bohemian lifestyle looks like. This is La Boheme to you. This is from a book
Right.
that you read.
Like, actually, one of the, again, our poet guy, one of the things I think is really revealing is that, he's like, oh yeah, I also really need my stipend check. I spent all my money on books and records and have been eating pasta all month. And she thinks with contempt, oh, so you're able to do that. I'm too poor. It's like, you're receiving the same stipend check, guys.
Yes. No, what she means by that is I'm too nervous. I'm too scared to live like that.
Well, no, it's, I mean, a lot of it is she's spending a bunch of her money on fancy cocktails instead with Ava. And tango lessons.
Oh yeah, no, you're
Like, she's taking tango lessons. She's going out to eat and drink at, like, interesting bars and restaurants. And then she's looking at the guy who spent his money on books and records and going, oh, I'm too poor to live like that.
Oh my God, you're so right. I missed that entirely.
This is why I'm speaking up in defense of our poet being less of a dipshit than the narrative is clearly painting him as, because he's partly there to sort of I feel like he's partly there to be an example of what Smacky thinks she is,
Right.
but isn't. Except,
Right.
like, he's just genuine about it and is being really nice.
She is clearly a mean girl, Samantha is in capital
Right.
letters. Like, she is so much closer to the bunnies than she's willing to let herself think. And it
Right,
is,
which is
like,
why the bunnies are able to, like, suck her into their bunny cult so easily.
they're able to suck her into their bunny cult, like, and overwhelm the force of the woman who she literally created to be the perfect friend. Like,
Right.
the bunnies appeal to her enough that she doesn't even, I mean, obviously she feels conflicted about it, but the call of her perfect friend is not enough to stop her from joining them.
Right, it's another nice bit of foreshadowing where you're like, why did Ava completely vanish for several days after you joined the bunnies? And it's like, oh, okay, because this has constrained your imagination and appealed to you enough that you're not able to, like, access your magical swan friend.
Under blue moon I saw you, so soon you'll take me up in your arms, too late to beg you or cancel it, though I know it must be the killing time, unwillingly mine. Fate up against your will, through the thick and thin. This song is by a band called Echo and the Bunnymen.
So let's talk about the Bunnymen, because the whole thing with the Bunnymen is really funny. The way that some of them get taken to, like, a nice pasture upstate and then, like, show up as townies.
Yes, which again makes me think about, like, again, where it seems deliberate that we're really messing with whether anybody has personhood as far as Samantha is concerned. But yeah, no, I originally thought that it's like, oh, there's all this talk about, like, decapitation gangs or stuff and such, which I think that at the end of the day is just satire on the hysteria of the college people in the perfectly reasonable mid-sized city.
Providence is nice.
Like, we went to University of Chicago, there, even that, I got fucking chased. People I knew got attacked. Even
Yeah,
that.
nobody had ever did any of this to me, I will note.
Well, yes, that's because I was an idiot.
Right.
Don't leave these few city blocks, they said, and I said that's cowardly and racist, and I was right to say it. Out and about in the south side, I was careful and I was fine. Within those few city blocks, on the other hand, they really should have said, don't walk around alone at 3 a.m, and don't go in the park in the middle of the night because you can't sleep, and don't flip off that black SUV with the tinted windows just because they nearly ran you over, and don't let the gang of Providence is not comparable, is what I'm saying. But even within that, it's like, we are just choosing to think of Providence as like this like cursed Lovecraftian zone rather than just the world,
Right.
which is what it is outside of this college, and RISD, which is next door, which is where Ava went.
Yes, which is where Ava dropped out of because,
She was too cool for them.
right. Well, and I think, part of this is that she's this literalization of all of Smacky's fantasies. And so that includes dropping out of the stupid grad program. But, she is unable to do that. I think the more that we're talking about this book, the more I'm sold on the ending working better than we think as just like a straight up horror ending.
Yeah, no,
One of those, you did not actually escape the evil world that you were trapped in.
yeah, I think there is definitely that reading to be had here.
Because just because like Ava drops out, Ava, who's supposed to be perfect, drops out of grad school, and that is the part of her who gets murdered.
Yes, you are now doomed to be an academic in the academic literary world for the rest of your life. Ooh.
Well, it's just, well, no, it's that she fails to recognize that she could just leave.
Yeah, that is absolutely true.
And even the graduation march where she didn't read her email properly, and so she doesn't realize that the diploma is fake, and she keeps trying to yank her like show diploma out of the guy's hand.
It's very funny.
It's very funny, and also it's just like, okay, she really doesn't understand that she could just leave.
Yeah, no, it does, like, when you let it settle, it really is sort of a parade of missed opportunities. And I think that maybe I'm like, as you know, I'm often guilty of just accepting the moral universe that the narrator of any given book gives me. It's one of my real weaknesses as a critic, folks. And, being so inside this one, it really made me feel like, it made me sort of feel like I was being asked to accept Samantha's moral universe.
Yeah, but I actually, as we're picking the book apart, I feel like I'm selling myself on the idea that that when you step back, you're supposed to go, okay, no, actually, Samantha's moral universe is just as bankrupt and awful as comparably at least to that of the four girls whose lives she ruined.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I would have liked it to tip its hand a little bit more, maybe. It feels like it could be too comfortable, that it lets the reader off without necessarily insisting on that point. But,
Yeah, no, I think it could definitely have driven that more home a little bit more. I mean, part of why I think I picked up on this is that I read it a second time to prep for the podcast. So I skimmed it a second time, but I dwelled on all the stuff that I thought was a little off on the first read. But okay, so I still want to talk about the Bunny Men.
Fate up against your will.
Because again, this is also the funniest part of the book is how the bunny girls, who are real people, keep capturing wild rabbits on campus, exploding the rabbits into their ideal men who are all, Ken dolls. And then they have to axe murder them because, as you're saying, there's all this idea of roving decapitation gangs. Well,
yes. There's a lot of corpses that need to be disposed of here.
There's a lot of corpses that need to be disposed of here, and it's all coming from, the rich white girls. And then again, sometimes they just go, oh, well, this one seems like it could basically pass for human, and we'll just release it into Providence.
Yeah.
And then it shows up later as, catering staff or the waiter at the diner or whatever.
Right. Which I think, if we're going to be one-to-one about the satire, this is sleeping with townies as an affectation. And and then just sort of releasing them back into the wild, uh, as if they were essentially just sort of animals to be picked up and then discarded. Which,
Yeah, I don't think it's one to one. Like, I think that that's part of what's going on. Certainly with the sort of awkward, oh, hey, there's that guy at waiting tables while we're here, you know, talking about our MFA work.
yeah,
But I don't think that's the only thing it's doing.
no, it made me feel like, Samantha does not essentially spend any time thinking about whether she, in a class way or in a sort of larger cohort way, could be in any way culpable for the larger feeling of horror that surrounds her.
Yeah.
And then we find out that the rich girls are literally sort of seeding the general population with philosophical zombies.
Yes.
And I don't. That's a metaphor that escapes me personally, like exactly what that entails. But it certainly does. I mean, on the broad side of, like, you are making Providence worse by being the vulture that you are,
Yes.
despite the fact that this is one of the major industries that keeps the city going.
Yes.
Is definitely implied there.
Yeah. And I mean, because there's also like the way that she treats the I'm looking him up right now, Benjamin, the friendly administrator. So again, like, she sort of thinks of herself as better because she talks to the staff, the administration staff, and later, like initially she's like, oh yes, Benjamin, he's my friend among the staff, and you're like, oh okay, because again, you're the one who doesn't quite fit in, so you're hanging out and talking to the staff because you're too imposter syndrome-y to talk to the people around you, and then Benjamin stops being her friend because he's been because she and the bunnies were really awful. Oh no, sorry, not even the bunnies. It was at the end of first year, apparently. She said, she was like, oh yes, I'll go to your social event, and then she ditched it.
Yes. For entirely, for reasons which seemed entirely reasonable to her at the time. But yeah, no, the theme of treating everybody who is not part of your cohort as essentially disposable and temporary, because they are to you, because you're not going to be here. You're not actually in this community or, contributing to it. You are temporary, and the community then has to deal with the consequences of having a very large temporary population, which fucks with all kinds of stuff on an infrastructural level.
Can you tell we're in a college town?
Yeah, including the ability to provide basic services to everybody else. Yep. No, that's absolutely true. I mean, there is a very surface reading that the curse on Providence is, in fact, the colleges,
our university.
Yeah.
But like, I think that there's another thing, because it's not even just about, I think, sleeping with the townies. It is about sort of this act of dehumanization where, they say, oh, well, these are our darlings and we're supposed to kill our darlings, so we are going to take an axe to them. Like, I guess it is a good example of, because I think it's less about sleeping with the townies and more turning everybody you meet into fodder for your art, or into fodder for, like, how you construct your personality.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's something which Samantha is as guilty as the bunnies of, just in a very different way.
Right, exactly. Like, we see her do the same thing to poor Benjamin, the administrator, who was kind enough to hold a barbecue for the students.
Right. But I think that there is, like, it isn't just sleeping with the townies. It's like sleeping with the townies and then with a townie and then writing about it for your MFA.
Right, exactly.
That's sort of the real vicious thing that is happening here.
Or just pretending to be friends with the townies.
Yeah. I mean,
like going to a townie's party or making small talk with them over cheese or whatever. But all of it is about constructing either your artist persona or, just fodder for your art.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here we get to, like, maybe sort of a very prime satire on being a creative person, which is, are you in fact just using everybody else for their symbol language, and recycling everybody into your art, and again, as with the writing about writing thing, that's kind of a we've watch Utena,
Yeah.
but segue. One more thing about the bunnies is that one of them looks like Donald Glover, which is again I think the only time that somebody's race is specified other than white women, and it's telling that it's one of the bunnies. I think.
Yes. Yes, it is. Who is again sort of kind of a townie and also kind of a created to be a disposable experience.
Precisely. One of the first thing about the book that interested me was, and then made me think like, okay, what is actually going on here? Is and at first I thought, this is about who the author wants to be reading this book. And I think at this point, having had this conversation, it's more about who Smacky wants to be reading her story and in what mindset she wants to be reading their story. But in the first pages of the book explains to us, or Samantha explains to us, what Cthulhu is.
Right.
This book is I don't know how much of a nerd you have to be to know who Cthulhu is at this point in time.
Actually, you still have to be kind of a nerd. At my publishing job staff thing, there were two of us who had any real idea about Lovecraft. Mm-hmm. And everyone else was just like, huh, really?
Maybe it's also a generational thing. But then that is followed up by a reference to Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which is not explained.
And does not have nearly the cultural clout of Cthulhu.
Where it's like, yes, no, and to me, I thought, okay, the writer, we're not doing genre fiction here, because the writer of this book wants the reader to be a person who doesn't know what Cthulhu is and who does know immediately what Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is. But I think that is in fact more about Samantha.
Yes, and who she thinks would listen to her.
Yes, who she thinks her people are.
Right.
And that'd be also, the joke of that sort of unfolds over the end of this, when it turns out that this is kind of a cosmic horror story.
Yes.
And the fact that in all of that, Lovecraft is actually not mentioned and is just called a horror writer who moved here and went insane, which is not strictly speaking what happened, or moved here and killed himself or something like that, which is it was went insane and died, I think. And
right. I think that's what it is.
Where in fact he had some mental problems and then he died of an illness. But
he had many problems.
Yeah, he did indeed. But I appreciate, just because I'm not giving Lovecraft his laurels by calling him by name, because of course he is canceled at this point. But
well,
I appreciated that, because it made me prick up my ears and think, well, okay, so something's going on here,
right?
Which is a little strange, and indeed it turns out that something was going on.
That one didn't make me prick up my ears. I think because I saw the all the blurbs were clearly selling this as, I mean, it's been blurbed by Margaret Atwood, and all the things that it's being compared to are not genre fiction,
right?
Or they're the sort of more literary genre fiction. So it's stuff like Kelly Link and Margaret Atwood, who are genre fiction that you can claim to read and still sound intellectual.
Yes, and for better or worse, I think that is, I mean, given the way that this book is shelved and marketed, that is actually a part of what's going on here, which again makes me circle back to the smugness that comes off of the it turns out that Samantha was just better at pretending the whole time ending, and makes me still having had this discussion still makes me go, I'm not sure about that. But
yeah, but I guess part of it is Samantha was better at pretending the whole time, but where has her pretending gotten her?
This is true.
She's still staring at the mud.
Well, maybe she'll write this book and it'll be very successful.
So we haven't talked about the lion at all, which is in some ways kind of appropriate, because he's set up to be this major figure, right? he's the predatory MFA advisor, the one who's, you know, gorgeous and cool, and she has had this thing with him which has never has never actually been overtly romantic or sexual at all, but has still caused her to have a meltdown.
Hot take. He is also an animal. She made him out of a lion.
She does call him the lion.
Yes.
So that is, yeah, I'm willing to accept that interpretation.
Because he is just absurdly, he is absurdly cool in a way that all of the other, made up people that she's made up are insanely cool, and along the same sort of lines. This is...
Unlike the other MFA faculty who are cringe.
Yes, who are rich white liberals. Rich white liberals who acquire art from other cultures. Ew,
Right, cringe.
They're gross African music. Yeah, but whereas he is he's into all the same noise bands that she is, and has that air of subtle sexual danger, but again didn't actually try to fuck her at any point.
And we know she spends a lot of time at the zoo, so
right.
Maybe that's where she got the lion. Right, and they didn't try to fuck her because none of these animal people ever actually fuck anybody except
other pretend people.
except other pretend people, and that's right, because I even what's his face, the stag who she turns into her animus, doesn't actually sleep with any of the bunnies, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, I think that it's implied that he does.
He just psychologically torments them.
He bit one of them on the inner thighs a whole bunch, but that's the extent to which it went. And the exact point at which her fantasy about the lion peters out, because she's forced to go to she's basically forced to the contradiction at that point. And it was the bunnies themselves seeing her with the lion and being like, oh, I think I'm onto something. I think the lion is also fake.
I think you're right. No, I think you're right. I think that this is an excellent hot take, and you've sold me on it.
Yeah, and it's exactly the point where she reaches the end of the fantasy that she's able to play out with herself, because she doesn't actually want to fuck the college professor. She just wants a college professor who's super cool and hot and is interested in her.
Right.
So when that fantasy breaks down, she then has to move on to the next fantasy, and that's immediately when she finds the swan.
Right. No, you're right. And also you're right that that's the first, because the bunnies notice twice. They notice her with the lion, and then they notice her with Ava, and
yeah, no,
and that's when they reach out again. No, I think you're right. I think that the lion is absolutely another creation.
Now, he's also supposed to be the person who got her accepted into the program in the first place, on top of being an internationally famous writer, so the timeline doesn't really work out, but maybe she dreamed him up from afar, created his whole oeuvre, created all his fans. Who knows? It's magic. Perfect. Well, there we go. So it just remains to be seen. Maybe the next thing that happens in this book is that she will be distracted from her mud man by another animal that she unconsciously turns into a person to be fixated on.
I honestly think you're overselling the degree to which she is going to be involved with the mud man.
It's just where the book ended,
It's where the book ended, but the thing is that she keeps almost hanging out with him. She keeps they spend all this time smoking together in alleyways. He drives her around town a bunch. She's just okay, let's go hang out. And then it's entirely possible that she's going to flinch away from that too.
Maybe they will be friends. So yeah, no, the perhaps the tragedy at the end is that she can't actually locate any of these super cool attributes, including all of the interesting gender and sexuality stuff, on herself.
Yeah. And
she just has to be, the girl who's too tall and feels weird about it.
Which is such a YA novel heroine problem to have.
Yeah, and along with the cool girls who won't talk to me and all of that.
Right? Because it's always too tall or too skinny. All of these things which are generally considered fairly socially desirable, and yet for some reason.
Yeah, no, I'm talking. I've talked myself around to thinking that all of the stuff about the book all the things about this book that made me roll my eyes are there on purpose. And I I think this is a good book. I still think that
Yeah. It was not a pleasant read, but this is actually a really smart book.
yeah. So glad we got there.
Yes, thank you to whoever recommended it.
Do we have any minor notes?
I don't think so.
Okay, I just wanted to say that I'm Borny is for I'm bored is
Bored and horny.
yeah, is possibly the most awful thing that I have ever read, and I wanted to give the author plaudits.
I remember seeing that and going, I've got to find some way of scrubbing this from my brain. I do not want this mind virus.
I'm sorry for bringing it up again.
I know. I was so close, too. Oh, well, at least I know you're suffering with me.
Mm-hmm. Also, I think that I may know who the folk singer who sings of loneliness and squirrels and then walked out of her own life is, and I think that I think Lee is a big fan of this person, and if I'm right about this, I will think about this, and if I'm right, I will take us out
Cover.
with a little cover.
Is it Connie Converse?
See that bird sitting on my windowsill. He's saying whippoorwill all the night through. See that brook running by my kitchen door. It couldn't talk no more if it was you. Up that tree, there's sort of a squirrel thing. Sounds just like we did when we were quarreling. In the yard, I keep a pig or two. They drop in for dinner like you used to do. I don't stand in the need of company, with everything I see talking like you. Up that tree, there's some sort of squirrel thing. Sounds just like we did when we were quarreling. You may think you went and left me all alone, but I can hear you talk without a telephone. I don't stand in the need of company, with everything I see talking like you. See that bird sitting on my windowsill. Well, he's saying whippoorwill all the night through. Just whippoorwill all